Welcome to our Friday report out. It's the 7th of September. Come on in. That's it. Great. It's lovely to see everybody here. Special welcome to Celeste Derheimer from Virginia Mason, who's been with us all week. And I'm sure that some of you have the opportunity to speak with Celeste. I have, and that's been really helpful to me. So we've got a slightly different report out today, and it's great for us to hear from one of our value streams, Value Stream 4, and scheduling within ophthalmology. But equally, I think it's really important that we hear about some of the work that the KPO have been doing and really work that they've gathered along the way around respectful behaviours. And it links very nicely to then hearing from Jo Cohen, who is a very regular attender at Report Out, but is also our Freedom to Speak Up guardian. And then finally, we're going to get some of Celeste's reflections, I think, on her week in the Trust. So without any further ado, I'm going to hand over to Daniel and Seema to talk to us about the progress you've made, because it's your 120-day report.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right.
So hi everyone, I'm Danny, I'm process owner for the corneal clinic scheduling report out, Rapid Improvement Week 3. So just to summarise, when we first started this, there was a lot of issues in the corneal clinic. There was a lot of interruptions to the clinicians, people going outside of offices and rooms to look for equipment, etc. Patients were delayed up to 2 hours from their appointment time. So some of the work we've been doing, sorry, this is just some of the comments that was observed by the patients about waiting times. There's some positives in there as well about the minute that they've got time for you. And sometimes I'll wait 3 hours, but everyone's been excellent. The wait is worth it. So that's some of the feedback we've had. Just looking, like I say, about consultant time used in clinic. So there's 116 minutes was direct clinical care. The purple bar you can see is a lot of interruptions, and the yellow bar as well, a lot of waste. Interruption type by role, so as you can see there was other consultants interrupting consultants for advice, a lot of junior doctors asking for advice, optometrists who work alongside the ophthalmologist in clinic. And there you see what the main reason for the interruptions was: patient advice. All this is waste when we could be seeing patients in clinic. So we've implemented a few different things to try and tackle these and make things a little bit more organised in clinic. Dionys is going to talk to you about the production board. Yes.
So basically we got the production board, and we had the, this is for setting room as well. Set up room, we had the team agreement, so basically to try and run the clinic smoother. So next one, please. Next. So the production board basically is like a effective communicating tool that we got all the doctors, nurses, healthcares, and we got the other MDT, multidisciplinary team, staff members in the board. And we got, now we added additional information if there is anything else to add to it. And we find it quite useful because we can see the skill mix straight ahead, like senior staff, medical and nursing staff. And we start allocating some tasks, like a casualty nurse, who's going to look after prescriptions, who's the coordinator in theatre, and so on. And that is still ongoing work, and we might allocate more positioning of nursing and healthcare in the future, such who's doing the IVs, who's doing the visual fields from the healthcares, and so on. And regarding the setup of the rooms, we're looking again into the physical space, because our trolleys are quite small to add the instruments and things, some extra things for the clinical for corneal clinics, because I always get the feedback of the staff, and that was the only concern basically. However, we're trying to set up as good as we can, because even looking at the printer paper and looking at the stationery make a big difference to the timing, rather than the doctor going out and looking for all this. If everything is stocked up for the normal clinic, the drops and everything else, it makes quite a huge difference, I guess. So that all this has got, I think, a positive impact in a corneal clinic, and the production board in the whole clinic work and being organized as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Also, I'll just tell you quickly about query trace. So there are a lot of interruptions as well to clinicians regarding I don't know when the next appointment is, this form's not being filled in correctly, there's no space to put them in next week. So what we've done to avoid these sort of interruptions is we've created a query tray with the help of the outpatient team. That's what it looks like. So instead of knocking on a consultant's door, waiting, speaking to them for 5 minutes, everything goes in that tray and is dealt with at the end of the clinic instead, so that prevents those sort of interruptions. And that's just the team agreement where the outpatient team signed up to agree to do all this, and that they have been sticking to it. Seema?
Thank you. So as a clinician at the receiving end of this in a lot of corneal clinics, a lot of this has really helped, particularly the setting up in the morning. It's really streamlined things. And one of the things that will, I think, make a real difference going forward is this diagnostic test stand that we're now using. Because in corneal clinics, our patients have multiple investigations on the day. And what that means is that either the consultant then spends an hour before clinic looking through all the notes, writing up what they need doing. And sometimes you can have 40 to 50 patients in a clinic, so that's a lot of time spent in the morning just looking through notes. Or it means that the patients then go back and forth. They see the consultant go back for investigation, come back, so that just makes the journey very poor. So we have designed this stamp, which we now use to stamp the notes at the end of the consultation for what they need at the next visit, so that it's visible and there for the nurses to see when the patient comes the next time. And we've started trialing it, and I've had really good feedback from my colleagues who've used it. So I think this will make a real difference going forward. The other thing that we were hoping would help with the interruptions, which is the other major issue in corneal clinics, is this resource model where the consultant helicopters around the clinic and sort of leads and triages and supports, rather than just having their head down and trying to get through clinic. We haven't been able to trial this as much as we would have liked to, because we've been running over capacity over summer with a lot of people being away, and the new juniors haven't really settled in and need a lot more support at the moment. But we've got we have plans to trial this in November once the juniors have settled in and we're not running over capacity. And I'm very hopeful that this will reduce the number of interruptions and make the consultation a better experience for our patients. Because our patients sometimes get interrupted 4 to 5 times within one consultation, with various people coming in and asking for advice. So we're very hopeful that this will make the process more streamlined. Thank you.
So barriers that we've experienced while we've been doing this 120 days. So it's a change in mentality to the way we currently work. So this is how we do it. We need to think differently to make all these different ideas work. Cooperation from key stakeholders. You need everybody on board, everybody involved, everybody needs to be aware of what we're doing and why we're doing it. And making time during the day to make these changes. If you don't make no time to do these changes, it'll just stay the same as it is. It shows us barriers. I think when we first started it was a barrier. Now 120 days on, 3-4 months, it's kind of, the barriers have gone. I think people realise what we're doing and why we're trying to do it, so I wouldn't say there's particularly any barriers anymore. Key learnings, like I say, when you're doing one of these projects, communicate to all the stakeholders, everyone who's going to be involved, how it's going to affect their working day, what they need to know. Regular meetings to update on progress. So we didn't do this at the start, we just kind of carried on, and things were kind of fizzling out a little bit, so we recently set up, maybe about 2 or 3 months ago, a weekly meeting with our sponsors, just to keep things going, and things seem to have picked up and getting back on track, and it's reigniting things that sometimes die. And persevere, don't give up on a good idea. It's a good idea for a reason, so you've just got to keep at it, keep going. In summary of the improvements that we've made so far, so the average time in clinic for a patient is 41 minutes from checking in to leaving. The number of patients in the process at a particular time, so that's from being checked in to going out. When we started it was 13 patients, now it's down to 9. And the number of interruptions per consultation clinic, it was down from 133% when we first started, and it's down to 50%. So all these changes have all added up and made a difference. That's it, thank you.
I think because the meeting changes a little bit, or report out changes a little bit, it might be just a good opportunity to ask you any questions right now.
Yeah.
So, does anybody have any questions for Seema, Dionysus, or Danny? Yes.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Danny. Thanks for that. I think it was really interesting, and I'm really pleased that Seema have been involved in making the changes. I guess from my perspective, the things that are going into the tray are errors or mistakes or lack of capacity. So I was just interested in what our next steps are to reducing those mistakes.
Yeah, so we've recently did, I think it was about 2 weeks ago, did a rapid improvement week on the outcome forms where there were blanks and there were errors. I think our lead clinician, Mr. McKetty, has been involved with that, as well as members of the outpatient team, the nursing team. And they tried to simplify these sheets, make them easy to read and make them a bit more of a fail-safe. They've been trialled at the moment. I think they were first trialled this Wednesday. So, I mean, I've seen them myself. I don't know what have you seen them yet, Seema? And they look a lot more straightforward. Capacity, I think that's a different issue. I don't think it's something we can tackle through this rapid improvement week. But hopefully, with these sheets changing and made more straightforward, it should make a difference and mean less things have to go in that tray for your team.
Yeah, because it's important that we have that. We've got our 48-hour measuring.
For you to do what you need to do, you need to get the right information through, don't you? And that's one of the issues you weren't getting the right information. So hopefully, this last week will make a difference.
Okay. Any, Mike?
Yeah, the 48-hour consultant disruptions, 133%, 50%. Can you just explain what that is, what it represents?
Yeah, so that was so for every patient. So I think when we first looked at it, there were 30 patients, and I think there were 40 interruptions in clinic. So that was
More than one per.
Yeah, I can't do the maths, but it was more than one per patient. So like I said, it'd be people knocking on doors asking for clinical advice, things like that, really.
Yeah, no, I understand it now.
Yeah.
Seema, what does it feel like to you now?
I think the whole process is more streamlined, because with cornea clinics, just right from the clinic being set up in the mornings, you're not going in and out, looking for stuff, to people not interrupting and knocking to ask about queries on the forms, etc. I mean, the valid interruptions are still there. People still obviously knock and ask for medical advice, and that we're hoping the resource model will address to some extent. But the things that can be done away with, going in and out for looking for stuff, people asking things that can be dealt with at the end of clinic, not having to spend an hour in the morning looking through notes sometimes. I think all of that really makes a difference. It feels better, more streamlined.
So from your point of view, does it feel less stressful doing the clinic?
I think you're less stressed doing avoidable stuff, and you can really focus on what you need to do.
Does it alter your finish time at all?
I wouldn't necessarily say that, because as I said, our clinics have been running well over capacity over summer, so it doesn't alter the finish time. But I think it creates a better experience for the patients because they're not interrupted as much, and I think it's less stressful for the clinician, and you're able to focus more on the clinical work and avoid the unnecessary stuff.
And how about for you, Dionysus?
I think we go to in the audit, the staff meeting, so we always look into different things, like, as I mentioned before, like we got little trays in the room, and how are we going to set up things to try and maybe put less instruments or for corneal clinic and things. We're trying different things, is ongoing. The mentality, I mean, Helen helped me send me like team agreement guidelines, so I set up the team agreement and discuss with each member of the team what we expect from them, and how they can deal effectively with helping, basically, to set up. Because we do a general setup in the morning, but if we can get some little extra instrument that Miss Anand designed the list closer to the clinician in the room, without creating a lot of clutter and things, it's going to be every little help, they say in the advertisement. So.
Helen, did you want to say anything?
I would like to say, so just a really well done to the team, but also I guess thanks to the outpatients department as a whole, because I think what we've really seen is over the 120 days, some things have worked at the outset, other things didn't work at the outset, but there's a real feel that there's going to be continuing change, and certainly the resource consultant model is booked for November, so there's a real will to get these things going in the right way, really. And I think it has made a difference in clinic. I love the board, I love the fact it's still, you know, reiteration number 3 I think we're on. But the whole team are involved in that, and there's now ideas starting to come through of how we can make improvements in other clinics that are coming through that department. So, really well done.
And if I remember rightly, I don't think that you measured junior doctor experience specifically at the beginning of your RPIW, but it sounds to me like your resource consultant, if you can get that to work, that actually the training for those junior doctors will feel better as well, and they won't, because they must feel like they're pestering you, when in fact it's very appropriate that they're asking questions. Yes. Helen.
It was a comment really in terms of, so, you know, huge congratulations, you are demonstrating the perseverance that this work requires to embed change, and it's really wonderful to see all that energy going into it, so thank you. And I think it's a message for the audience about the concept of interruptions. It's an organisational challenge, that we observe people just accepting that need to be interrupted, and actually what we learnt through this and other RPIWs is that when you hear what that interruption's about, it's a source for improvement, because somebody didn't have something or information or something at the point at time at which they needed it, and it's really important to start registering what those things are, because they will lend themselves to improvements in our work. So great work.
Yeah. Thank you very much, everybody.
If you haven't worked it out already, hello, my name is Helen Gilbert. I'm the Kaizen Promotion Office lead, and it's my absolute privilege to be leading this work in the Trust. We are just, well, for me and Chris personally, it was 3 years ago last week that we learned. It's our anniversary. It's 3 years ago last week that we learned we'd been awarded these, what we didn't realise at the time were amazing jobs. And I felt it was entirely appropriate, because we've been behind scenes collecting a lot of data about respectful behaviour. So there are an awful lot of familiar faces in the room for people who've been on our training, but we learned from Virginia Mason, who've put a lot of work into respectful behaviour, about what respect really is. And Virginia Mason have 10 respectful behaviours, and they have a wonderful model of assessing themselves personally against those behaviours and challenging themselves to work on the 2 that they find most difficult as an individual. And so it's not about the fact we don't do these things, it's about the fact we might have to think about it, plan it, really consider how we articulate it, what language we might use. And so I think do I need to do this? So in terms of connecting to our organisational strategy, we talk in KPO about respectful behaviour being the glue that holds together our organisational values. If we all behave respectfully with each other, we will automatically deliver our 5 organisational values of patient-centred, fair, accountable, collaborative and empowered. And so what I wanted to share with you was the team have been really good at collecting data in all our sessions that we deliver this work in, about how personally we rank ourselves against these behaviours. So if you rank these behaviours 1 and 2, it's about what you do naturally. So if you're a good listener and you listen to understand and reframe things back to check understanding, you'd be saying that's part of naturally what I do every day and who I am. And you would rank those types of things 1 and 2. And then the stuff that we find a little bit more difficult, we rank 9 and 10. It does not mean we don't do it, it just means we find it more difficult, more challenging and harder. And what this graph represents, and apologies, I know you perhaps can't read it from the back there, but is the data that we've collected probably now over 6 months in a considered way, maybe even up to a year, about what this is looking like in our organisation. And these ones over here are the amalgamation of those behaviours that people consistently rank 9 and 10, the stuff we find tough. And this stuff over here is the stuff that people rank 1 and 2, who we are most naturally as an individual. So we find it really easy to express gratitude, connect with others, be encouraging and be a team player. That's over this end of the world. We all work in teams. And the nature of our work lends itself to being like that. But what we've got over this end of our diagram is walk in their shoes. Most important, understanding what it's like for other people through their eyes, not through ours in a judgmental way, but in theirs. But then the ones that are ranked 9 and 10, so number 10, grow and develop. And I want to read to you, she says without her reading glasses on, what grow and develop is, because it's consistently the highest behaviour that people find the most challenging to deliver in the organisation. Value your own potential by committing to continuous learning and learning new skills. Share knowledge and expertise with others. Ask for and be open to feedback. To grow both personally and professionally. Why are we most challenged by that in the organisation? I'm just going to leave that for us to consider. But a close second is speaking up. And so I have Gary Kaplan's voice in my head reminding me that the responsibility of leaders in the organisation is to connect the dots for people. So I'm going to read to you the definition of speaking up. It is our responsibility to ensure a safe environment for everybody at Leeds Teaching Hospitals. Not just physical safety, but emotional and mental safety. Create an environment where we all feel comfortable to speak up when something is or feels unsafe. So my connecting the dots for you today is to segue nicely into Joe Cohen, who is our Freedom to Speak Up Guardian, who I'd like to spend some time talking to you about his learning so far in his role as our Freedom to Speak Up Guardian. Thank you.
Thanks. Hello, my name is Joe. For those who've not met me, I am the Freedom to Speak Up Guardian. I have props. You give Joe 6 minutes, he brings props. So the phrase "get over yourself" is hanging in the air. If you think about what Helen's just been saying, to go smoothly from it, let me show you this. This is what Helen's just been doing. She's the queen. What I want to suggest is now I want to talk about this. I'm the thistle or something, I think. It's the same thing. That's what we discovered very early on in this process. Those difficulties that people have, and I just, actually as I was sitting there, so good marks for preparation. If you're finding it difficult to speak up yourself, how likely is it that you'll function well in a conversation where someone is bringing something to you? It's unlikely. My job in the organisation, along with a team of others, is to change the culture. Yes, of course, we sit beside the red telephone metaphorically and we take individual concerns, whereas actually the main work will be done in creating pockets of, and eventually connected up organisationally, safe environments where people routinely, it does not seem odd, raise concerns in my world, but actually I've always maintained that when someone raises a concern, more often than not, 99 times out of 100, there's an improvement to be had inside that concern. So you now see the correlation between the two worlds. it's unlikely that you'd get an individual employee that would be confident in one room in Leeds improvement type conversations to challenge the way they've been doing something for years, to come up with a great idea, but timid and fearful in another one about doing pretty much the same thing, about something they've seen that they think could be done better, because that's the narrative we try to stick to it. We say, what are you telling us that could be done better? Even if there was a poor impact on a piece of patient care, of course we could have done that better. So the simple idea, and I'm so grateful to the team for letting me join, do a joint enterprise type conversation with you today, is if you're successful in this side of the equation, you're going to be successful in this one as well, and vice versa. If we can collectively, because it isn't something I'm going to do on my own, raise the culture, and culture is not about changing 18,000 people's behaviours at 10 o'clock the following morning. Culture changes in a room. Culture changes in Costa over a coffee. Someone brings something to you, and at the end of that you've decided to do, hey, first of all, listen in a different way, react in a different way, and do something different. And you walk away from that table, if it's 2 or 3 or 22 or 23 of you, you change the culture, and it's unlikely to go back the other way. So I just wanted to hope this image sticks in your mind from whichever side you want to think of this, whether it's the data that's emerged about why people routinely, at all levels of seniority, I thought that was very significant. These have captured every level of the organisation, and yet it was a similar response to what was found to be difficult. And then when you hear other pieces of information radiating out through the Freedom to Speak Up agenda, where we talk about how can you create environments that grow that idea of this is where we can speak, this is where we can raise an idea, this is where we can raise a concern. And to, not the best way of doing this, but if you want to think negatively at the end, what's stopping that happening today? What is it in your own personal experience, but more importantly, if you're in a managerial role, what is it in your area of influence that means this is still difficult? Is it because your own personal behaviours would, I'm going to use a strong word, intimidate people in that room? Because that's the thing that has to change. You've got to draw that from them in a confident way. So think of the pound coin, freedom to speak up, Leeds improvement method. And it spins beautifully. If I could have got a spinning coin in a PowerPoint, I'd have put it on a table called the Leeds Way Values, because that's where this all started.
Thank you very much, Joe and Helen. I don't know if any of you, can all read the font on the behaviours that people find difficult. Helen's talked about grow and develop and speaking up, but I'll just run through them for the others if you can't read them from the back. But walk in their shoes, share information, keep your promises, listen to understand, be a team player, be encouraging, connect with others, or express gratitude. And as you said, Helen, it's not that people don't do any of these behaviours, but it's the ones that they find the most difficult. And certainly I've been in a number of sessions with Helen or KPO team members where we've talked about respectful behaviours, and the alignment is very strong. And as you said, Joe, it's very rare that where somebody raises a concern, there isn't an opportunity for improvement. So thank you both very much. I'm now going to hand over to Celeste, and she's going to give us some reflections and hopefully some tips.
With props.
With props.
I knew we were kindred spirits. So, how many of you have seen this graphic before? Okay. So, Virginia Mason basically took the Toyota production system house, and we didn't change a lot. We really didn't change a lot. And Helen, who was recently out in Seattle, would tell you that this isn't our house anymore. We've evolved, and I'm sure when you come in October, Yvette, that you will see the new house. But for 15 years of our journey, we really stuck to the principles of the Toyota production system, okay? Because, and I'm going to talk about a concept you may be familiar with. I know the KPO is shuhari, and I'll talk more about that. But really, as I was listening to, and congratulations, Danny and Dionis and Seema, so good to see you again. I spent a week with these folks, watching as they toiled through the improvements. But what I'm curious about is the two pillars is what I want to focus on. And the first pillar is just in time. It's making sure that we've got what we need, where we need it, when we need it, in the amount. And just would ask you, as you heard the report out from RPIW number 4, did you hear anything about that? Did you hear any examples? And if so, what? What were some examples of getting people what they need, where they need it? Yes, Helen.
The stock, eye drops, making sure that when the clinician needed to use something, it was available for them to do it straight away in a location that meant they didn't have to move to go and get it.
Right, they're not wandering around the hospital. Any other examples? Yeah?
Bits of paper. I heard bits of paper being in the right place,
Yeah.
just where you need them.
Yeah, even the stationery, right? Yeah. And what is that if that is not respect for people, right? So respect for people is really built throughout the house, but in particular in the pillars. And so jidoka, Japanese word, we love them. Basically, I always tell people the answer to what jidoka is right in the pillar. One by one confirmation. So we are checking and making sure that things are done well, and we're not passing those defects on. Do you ever have defects passed on to you? Yeah. Do you ever sit there and go, if that person would just do their job and do it right? I've never thought that. Stop and respond to every abnormality. That's what Joe was just talking about, the speaking up. And that is our #1 respectful behavior at Virginia Mason that we still feel we need to work on. And we are, I brought my prop up here, and you cannot read this, but this is Respect for People 2.0. Okay, so this hasn't gone away, and we realized we needed to take another look at it. And what the team did is they actually resequenced and put the most important first. And the language has changed to be, and there's kind of an overarching, we will all have a role in sustaining a community where everyone feels valued, included, and respected. And that's the purpose of our respectful behaviors. I'm sure you'll see this in October too. So, just in time, what you need, where you need it, jidoka, making sure that we are all inspectors, safety inspectors, improvement inspectors. We won't go into automation because that's advanced lean training, but it really is about the visibility that Dionis talked about, the helicopter, I'm here to help and support you. And what I've seen, and where I want to go with this, I know you can't read this, but trust me, this is the pathway of your transformation journey. And I know that Yvette and Helen and others have seen this. There are 10 items here that when we think about an organization's journey to creating that culture that Joe talked about, and my hypothesis is that you cannot have a safe culture without an improvement culture, that we see this as a continuum. That's why this is a 5-year partnership. And so in year 1, happy anniversary by the way, Chris and Helen, you were starting, right? And in year 2, developing, and now you're progressing. And that's what I've seen this week. That's what I've seen. And we're launching some work in the next couple of years, 2 years guys, to really help move to spreading, improving, and sustaining. And when you start kind of moving here, you're going to reach a tipping point. It may not feel like that yet, but I really appreciated, Joe, what you said about You know, it starts in a room. It might start in an RPIW week. It starts in your Lean for Leaders. It starts with your value stream sponsor teams. And we started the week, I asked Helen, I said, what do you want me to focus on? And Helen said discipline. Now when I think discipline, I think keeping your promises. And that's what I'm seeing. Danny talked about, and the team, the RPIW. When you take people away for a week and you come out with a newspaper that lists the improvements, those are promises, right? And if we don't carry through on those promises. So I think our work ahead is really about more on implementation, disciplined implementation, all right? How is the RPIW sponsor, the process owner, and the KPO value stream manager, or if it's work you're doing, meeting on a consistent basis with this was our plan, here's our measures, how are we doing? How do we do that? How do we spread? You know, is it cookie cutter? Here's your standard work event, follow that, we made it up in a week, hope you like it. No, it's here's the concepts that came out. This production board makes the work visible. You may have other items because you have other staff, but the point is to make it visible to the entire team. So it isn't thou shalt do this, it's here's the 5 concepts. How do you feel we should implement those here? And then it's the sustaining, the hardest part. So how do we make sure that we've really embedded daily management into our work so it isn't an RPIW week or a Kaizen event or just some special thing. It's just how we do our work. And that's what I am starting to see really emerge. So I've had an absolutely amazing week. I am delighted to be going home to right sequence, my husband and my dogs. Important to get that sequence right.
And Gig Harbour.
And Gig Harbour, my home, yes, yes, which Helen has visited. But I want to thank you all for an amazing week. I am really looking forward to the next 2 years, and I am definitely here on the journey with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Celeste. It is really wonderful to have you with us and to really have your fresh eyes on what we've done when you've been away for a few weeks and you come back, but also for you to share with us the experience, because Celeste doesn't just share with us the successes of Virginia Mason. She tells us about the hard things that they found as well. So that's good for us because we find it hard as well at times, don't we? So I think, has anybody got any questions for any of our speakers now? No? Nothing at all?
I'm still finding it difficult to speak up in this room.
I think it's really important, isn't it? Because when you said discipline, is anybody prepared to share what was going through their mind when the word discipline came up?
Helen and discipline is a very difficult
It's very controversial because in my mind go military, but then you got the whole brainstorming things for communication, feedbacks and other things to consider.
Yeah.
But I think what Celeste meant is to reach the targets. So basically set up target, do the measurement, time frame and so on to get there in the end, I guess. Mm-hmm. That was the message of this discipline in this particular scenario.
It's a very different meaning, isn't it? Keep your promises rather than actually we're going to tell you off if you don't do it and we're going to really keep you in line. Discipline, it tends to be something you think about military, maybe school for some of us who are old enough where there was still some discipline. But keeping your promises and also about speaking up about actually that's an opportunity to improve.
For me, it's around discipline is actually quite difficult as well. I'm aware that I've signed up to this cycling thing for September and I haven't done any miles yet. And my discipline is actually quite difficult, but it's worth it.
Yeah, and I have to put things in place to help me with that. Yeah.
And sometimes, the discipline is keeping the promises to yourself, isn't it? So that you actually get to enjoy your work better, or that actually you get to spend more time with your friends and family, or doing things outside of work. Joe?
Mine's just a quick comment, and it's following up from a bit of the conversation on Wednesday at senior leaders as we head towards a very difficult, complex winter plan. We got talking about spreading, which was because Edan's got a mention, and it was said that there's already good work out there. There's pockets of great ways of looking at this. Couldn't people who've not had anything near a value stream in their world, could they reach out and get some help on what's already being done? I wonder if Celeste might sort of say, is that available organisationally to us?
Actually, Helen and I had a conversation, a quick debrief, and I know that the KPO team is being invited into a number of other opportunities, because what our real aspiration would be that this isn't just RPIW work or Kaizen work, that this is how we do our business. And I had an opportunity to meet with Julian as he was receiving his Lean for Leaders coaching this week. And we touched on that meeting briefly, and I said, I was really pleased to hear the Leeds improvement method opted up as, shouldn't we be looking at that? I would have liked to have heard it earlier in the meeting, but I was pleased to hear it. And as we go forward, it won't even be the Leeds improvement method. It'll just be, we need to think about it this way, and what's the waste involved, and are we eliminating the waste rather than doing defect management? So I'm very optimistic.
Okay, anybody else? All right, well, thank you very much indeed. I hope you've learned something today, and thank you in particular to our team from ophthalmology. I guess we're going to get 150-day report.
Oh, yeah, I want to hear about the subcopter thing.
Yeah. But November's more than 30 days away, isn't it? So we might need to think about that. Okay. But those of you who are off this weekend, have a great weekend. Those of you who are working, I hope it's not too busy. And we'll see you again in 2 weeks. Yeah. All right. Thank you very much.
Have a great weekend.
I like that.
That would have been nice. I was going to say, I forgot to.